Hello, everybody. Welcome to the March 21st Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. We now have a quorum. We have our attorney, so we're ready to roll. Thanks for waiting with us. First, we will start with introductions. I'll go first since I'm already talking. My name is Julie Johnson, and I'm a Historic Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated by the community at large.
I'm Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant, and I was also nominated by the community at large.
Hi, I'm Erin Hummel. I'm a landscape architect. I was nominated by the American Society of Landscape Architects.
Hello, I'm George Dennis, retired law enforcement. I live in a historic home, and I was nominated by History Colorado.
I'm Ann Wattenberg. I'm an architect nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
I'm Larry Sykes. I'm an architect nominated by History Colorado.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Landmark Preservation staff.
We have one more commission member who's on his way. He'll introduce himself when he gets here. Just a couple of things before the meeting gets going. Some audio tips for all of you that are joining us virtually. Apparently, for better sound quality, we strongly encourage you to download Zoom on your desktop, laptop, tablet. Click audio settings to bring up an additional menu, and that should have an add background noise suppression, and that supposedly keeps some of the noise down so that you can understand this better. For presenters or public commenters, when it's your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, click on the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. You can expand the menu next to the microphone, and that will reveal additional options. Select the speaker microphone devices and test your microphone speakers. And if you have audio challenges, you can switch to a phone for audio, and just let us know if you're having any of those problems. Graham, you're just in time to introduce yourself.
Perfect. Well, I'm Graham Johnson, a Preservation Project Manager nominated by the Denver Plan.
Thank you, Graham. All righty. So I am calling it to order. I understand that we have meeting records for approval of February 21st and March 7th. Commissioners, are there any comments or changes? All right, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting records for February 21st and March 7th, 2023 as
Second? I'll second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Excellent. All right. The meeting records are approved as presented. Thank you very much. That was Erica that made the motion and Karen seconded. Before we get going with the consent agenda and with the design review items, I would like to reserve a little bit of time at the beginning of every meeting for public comment. And that's for something on historic preservation in Denver in general, not one of the particular design review projects that we have before us today. But if you have a comment about preservation in general in Denver, now is the time. If you're joining us by phone, you can dial *9 on your keyboard to raise your hand or email landmark@denvergov.org. Do you have anybody that?
No hands raised.
Doesn't look like it? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Then we're moving on from public comment to the consent agenda. These are routine design review items that are recommended for commission approval without discussion. Applicants with these items passed on the consent agenda should coordinate separately with the Landmark Preservation staff to receive a certificate of appropriateness. There is no public comment for consent agenda items. The chair will announce the consent agenda by address. Chairs ask the commissioners if they have any conflict of interest, if you need to recuse yourself. Commission members announce ex parte contracts and conflicts of interest, and then we'll make a motion and vote on the consent agenda. Commissioners, got the consent agenda before you, 2023-COA-069 Marion Street. 2023-COA-070 at 3449 Elliott Street. 2023-COA-077 at 2529 West Davidson Avenue. And 2023-COA-078 TASC-006-1928 East 14th Avenue. Commissioners, do you have any, first of all, any conflicts of interest? Okay, great. Any comments, concerns, anything you want to pull off? All right, then do I hear a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 2023-COA-069 at 340 Marion Street, 2023-COA-070 at 3449 Elliott Street, 2023-COA-077, 2529 West 35th Avenue, and 2023-CAICC-006 at 1928 East 14th Avenue.
Graham, thank you for the motion. Do I hear a second?
Sorry.
I think George beat you to it, Larry. So George seconded that. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. The consent agenda is approved as presented. If you are on the line or joining us virtually for any of those consent agenda items, then you are welcome to stay with us for the rest of the meeting, but you can go now since your project secretary. And then you'll just check out with your landmark preservation staff. All right, commissioners, we are on to design review projects. The chair will announce, that's me, will announce the design review items on the agenda. Commission members will announce any ex parte contracts or conflicts of interest. Staff will introduce the application and recommendation. Commissioners will have the opportunity to question staff. The applicant gets a presentation and they have up to 10 minutes to make their presentation. And the commissioners may ask the applicant questions after that presentation as well. Public comment period after the applicant's presentation, and those are 2 minutes per person. And if you would like to speak regarding a specific project and you are not part of that applicant team, please click the hand raise button. For those calling via phone, dial *9 to raise your hand or email landmark@denver.org. The staff will have a chance to clarify if necessary. The commission will deliberate. And then the commission will move and vote. All right.
Brittany, on 2841 Perry Street first, as it was correctly posted on the website.
Okay, we'll do that first then. So it was discovered that the 2023-COA-071 at 2841 Perry Street wasn't posted properly. So I need a motion from the commissioners to move that particular project to April 4th.
I'll make the motion to move agenda item or application 2023-COA-071 at 2841 Perry Street to our April 4th meeting.
Erica, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Larry, thank you very much for seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The motion carries, and we will be moving 2023-COA-071 at 2841 Perry Street to our April 4th agenda. Thank you for reminding me. All right. First up for design review, we have Jesse with 2022-COA-554 at 3022 Champa Street in Curtis Park. Take it away, Jesse.
I need control of the screen.
I've given you control.
Is it not working?
Hold on, let me see if it'll pop up. It is not.
I'm with us, people work with us.
Just tell me when.
Okay, sure will do.
It doesn't seem to ever work for me.
So we're looking here at 3022 Champa Street. The applicant is proposing to construct a single-family residence along the 3000 block at Champa Street. Next slide. The site is currently a vacant lot in the Curtis Park G Historic District. The proposed infill will be set back 20 feet, meeting the block-sensitive setbacks. Next slide. The new structure will be 19 feet by 61 feet 3 inches. The dwelling features a modern take on the Queen Anne form, with a raised foundation and gable roof. The roof will be clad in Barrage T panel roofing system, which is a metal panel roofing system. In the color bronze, the house will be clad in Summit brick in the color medium red. The gable end of the house will feature a header brick bond pattern with alternating inset bricks. And you can see a detail of that at the bottom of the screen. The dormers will be clad in James Hardy plank, smooth finish lap siding with a 4-inch reveal in the color bronze. The structure will feature a Marvin Ultimate clad casement windows in the finished bronze. Windows will be inset into the wall 2 to 2+ inches. The primary entry will be a half-light panel door by trestle. The rear patio doors will be Marvin Ultimate clad lift and slide doors. And the full width porch will feature a flat roof clad in hollow welded steel and will be supported by 8-inch steel cylindrical posts. Next slide. The ADU for the property measures 19 feet by 22 feet and will have a flat roof. The roof will be clad in membrane roofing and the walls will be clad in James Hardy smooth finish lap siding with a 4-inch reveal in the color bronze. The ADU windows will be Marvin Ultimate clad casement windows in the color bronze, and the proposed service door for the ADU will have full light patio doors by trestle. The proposed garage overhead door will be a Clopay modern steel flush door, and the ADU exterior stairwell will feature a green screen mesh fence panels. Next slide. Pictured here are proposed materials and finishes, which can also be found in your application materials. The house and the ADU will feature simple cylindrical wall downlight wall sconces in addition to those materials. And the ADU exterior stair will again feature that green screen mesh fencing that was previously approved on an ADU next door by this commission. Next slide. Here are some section details of the building. Additional details and detailed drawings can be found in your application packet. This is just a sampling of what is in that application packet. Next slide. And then here's a detailed drawing showing that porch and the proposed column supporting it, as well as that welded roof. Next slide. In addition, the site will feature a 3-foot vertical picket fence in the front yard and a 6-foot vertical picket fence in the rear yard. The front yard fence will be 50% open as our requirement, and the rear yard fence will be a solid fence with no opening. Next slide. And then here's some proposed renderings and 3D drawings for you to look at. So staff is recommending approval of this application, citing guidelines 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.7, 4.8, 5.5, 5.6, and 5.18.
All right, Jesse, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for us?
One question.
Yes, you're bidding on.
When staff is reviewing window insets, is it typically the distance to the glass or the distance to the kind of like outermost part of the frame?
So whenever the commission has discussed this in the past, because we've had this conversation specifically for frame structures, and that meeting that 2-inch inset requirement. For double hungs, we typically require it to be 2 inches to the lower sash, so that would be the glazing from the exterior of the wall. And then on casements, there was a discussion that it would be just the glazing and would include trim as well. So this is proposed to be inset 2 to 2+ inches, and we're counting the corbelling on the brick for the inset on the brick around the windows, especially on the front of the house.
Okay, yeah, it looks like they were measuring to glazing details. Just wanted to check on that thing.
Any other questions? Great, Jesse, thank you. Is the applicant here? Do we have the applicant?
Oh, my God. All right, he should have the ability to unmute and turn his camera on if he wants.
All right,
There we go.
hi there, hi. If you, are you unmuted? Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you beautifully, thank you. Before you begin, if you could give us your name and your address, please, for the records, and then after which you will have 10 minutes to present your application.
Great. My name is Nick Leggett at 2959 Franklin Street in Denver. This project I'm really excited about it, and I'm glad I get to show you this last stage of it. It is a full brick residence on the, I think, a really great block of Curtis Park with a classic 3-2-1 window arrangement as discussed in the previous meeting. The one condition that was proposed as part of that previous meeting was shrinking the size and floating that oriel window in the gable, which I did, and I think it actually looks really balanced now. As far as brick details go, it has a double depth, a 2 brick depth facade, so that it allows a lot of variation and a lot of depth to those details. So I'm working within 2 brick depths instead of 1, which allows a lot more shadow lines and a lot more flexibility with detailing. As Jesse mentioned, there's some brick detailing in the gable that kind of harkens to a lot of the shingle details that are in Queen Anne's around the neighborhood, as well as a simplified flat roofed porch that spans a porch roof that spans the whole porch, which is also a common attribute of Queen Anne's in Curtis Park. The side windows, while not entirely visible from the street, are on a grid arrangement, kind of following the traditions of the neighborhood. They are a little bit bigger because there is less light in those sides, but we worked really hard on the hierarchy and sill placement of the windows and the delineation of the front door being a half light to make sure that the front door is highlighted as is common in Curtis Park. Yeah, I think, and we also minimized the appearance of anything like the dormer is in the same color as the roof, which you can see in this rendering is pretty minimal. So it adds a little bit of texture and shape, but it's really quite minimal, really causing people to focus on the facade and the detail that's in that facade, which again is a super common expression in Curtis Park to have these intricately detailed brick facades. I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, great, Nick, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Ralph? No. Okay, well done, Nick. Staff, did you have any additional comments? All right, then let's go into deliberation, Commissioner. Oh, I'm sorry, we have public comment. Are there any people waiting to comment?
There's one.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great.
Please give us your name and your address, and you'll have two minutes. Thanks.
Sure. It's Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, design of the Curtis Park Review Committee. Nick has come back with a different design than what we had originally worked through with him on this project. Obviously, the commission had issues with the curved windows, which are very well found within the district. And so we definitely disagreed with the commission on where they wanted this design to move forward. But Nick has responded to the commission's concerns. He's given a hierarchy of windows. We definitely feel that this design is not as strong as the initial application that the commission denied, but the commission seems to want something a little bit more simple. that does not necessarily fit the district, but fits what the Landmark Commission can comprehend and grasp. So this is definitely more modern. It does show the hierarchical of which the commission did request. So I feel that this design hit the comments that the commission requested that the architect do. You know, I definitely feel that this is not as strong as the design that initially was presented, but this is what the commission wanted. So we will support Nick in this design and encourage the commission to do that because he has addressed your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Is there anybody else that would like to provide a comment?
No hands raised.
No hands raised? Okay, great. All right, then, commissioners. What do you think? And of course, we have to think about the guidelines, how this fits or does not fit our guidelines.
I have a guideline question I want to start with.
Okay.
4.7 says use materials that appear similar in scale, color, texture, and finish to those seen historically in the district. And letter D says install architectural. Oh, you know what? It says metal. I was thinking materials. Where I was going with that was on brick, gable, and with the detail. I know we had talked about that briefly in the initial, but it was a mapping form as opposed to a design details conversation. And so, in spite of treating metals as materials, my guideline doesn't quite approach, but in the bigger picture, in similar scale, color, texture, and finish, a detailed brick gable like that is something I was curious to discuss. Doesn't quite, I mean, it's a contemporary infill, which I understand. It's not a contributing structure individually or a modification. That was a component of the design detail that struck me the most. You can discuss that further.
All right, Commissioner, do you have any thoughts to share with Brad? George didn't have a problem.
No,
with
I sorry,
No,
to
go ahead.
interrupt you. I feel like 4.7 G does convey that, where it says new materials that convey characteristics similar to materials. And similar to, I think, is the word. It's not
Not a fish scale shingle, but
It's not a fish scale shingle, but it gives a hint of what would have been in the gable end of some sort of material. Texture and patterning.
Fair.
And what's going to be on this reaction.
I think Ann and I are probably more on the same page, but I think that the guidelines allow for that kind of latitude, perhaps with infill, that's where I was curious.
Right.
Well, and with infill, I feel oftentimes there are pretty things that are, I find too duplicative of historic structures and aren't as much of a modern interpretation that makes it more of its time as well. And that is one thing I think this does with, in my reading of the guideline, is more of a modern interpretation of something rather than being a replica.
Understood.
I think I might point out that the phrase "what the commission wants" was used a couple of times. The commission is what they want or don't want is not so much the issue as the guidelines and how well proposed design fits within the guidelines. And there is a little bit, tiny bit of leeway there. The guidelines are still supreme, not what the commission wants. Now, that being said, I think the design does a great credit to Kurt's part. It is both appropriate and simplified and modern and well done. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you, George. And did you have any thoughts?
I think Erica wanted to say.
Okay.
I guess I just, I agree with Aaron's summary of how this fits within the guidelines and that we've seen similar use of brick, especially when you sort of have infill projects that are using it in maybe not the most traditional way, but it's using it as details to convey what would have been traditional details that we see on true historic buildings. So I think that this does meet the guidelines in a way Aaron some of that. So I think.
Barry, did you think that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything the other other commissioners have said, and I also think there is some precedent for dimensional brick detailing. I know at least in like Baker and Potter Highlands, I've seen some kinds of details, maybe not on a gable end, but it's not totally unprecedented use of brick. So.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very good point. All right, I feel like we're kind of over there, and
I just want to make some friendly comments because I think the applicant going to the expense of having a double white brick is actually pretty amazing, you know, in terms of high quality materials in order to achieve that. And it really makes sense. It really, to me, means that this is achievable. One thing, my friendly comment is that the applicant might want to overhang the roof by a good 6 inches, because I think that there are a lot of ledges up there and places for things to collect. And it looks sort of interesting that the brickwork is so intricate, but then all of the overhangs and the eaves are cut so close to the brickwork. And in this particular case, I just think for practicality, the applicant might consider projecting it out and keeping that. It's just becoming a place where stuff collects. So I think it's a terrific detail. It's very interesting.
Great. Any other thoughts? It doesn't look like we have any more thoughts or comments from the commission, so would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll do it.
Thank you, Erin.
I move to approve application number 2022-COA-554 for the new construction at 3022 Champa Street, as per design guidelines 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.7, 4.8, 5.5, 5.6, 5.18, character defining features of the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff.
Erin, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Graham, thank you for seconding. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed? So passes unanimous. Somebody abstain, any abstentions? There are no abstentions. All right. Thank you, Brittany. Well, this is my first real meeting as chairperson, so I'll probably make a lot of mistakes today. At any rate, Brittany's here to keep me straight. So, the 2022-COA-554 passed unanimously. And now we are on to 2023-COA-079 at 3435 Bryant Street in Crystal.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, so this is for 3435 Bryant Street, which was built in 1889, 1889, and is a contributing structure to the Potter Highlands Historic District. At the top here, you can see a streetscape view of the structure, which is on a wide interior lot, and below a more current photo. And to the right is an overview map showing the property's location. The proposals for a new side and rear addition. This application was originally reviewed at the February 7th LPC meeting and was denied based on guidelines 3.3 and 3.6. The applicant has revised the application to address the commission's comments. So here you can see the site plan of the existing zone lot showing the side and rear addition in a darker gray color at the rear of the structure. To the left of on the side of the screen is a photo of the existing structure showing the rear portion of the house, which will be demolished and incorporated into the new addition. Additional site work and alterations will include a new patio area at the rear and side of the addition, as well as new mechanical units and egress window wells for a basement dig out. Next slide. So here at the left, you can see the revised proposed addition from the front elevation, and at the top, the proposed rear elevation. At the bottom, outlined in orange, is the previous design. The applicant has changed the materials and pared them down to just 2 to address design guideline 3.6, and we'll have the Welshire brick at the first floor of the addition and a smooth horizontal lap siding at the second floor. Next slide. Here's the south side elevation at the side yard. The revised proposal is outlined in blue with the previous proposal in orange at the bottom. The first floor portion of the side addition has been redesigned to be less heavy than the original proposal, addressing design guideline 3.3, which states to design an addition to a historic structure to respect character-defining features of the historic district and surrounding context and of the historic primary structure. The first floor front portion has been resized to have a smaller footprint, and the balcony is smaller due to this change. The railing has also been simplified to be less ornate than the original proposal. And a simple metal shade canopy has also been added that projects out from the balcony. Next slide. And then here you can see the north elevation as well as the canopy connector to the garage. Again, we can see the two cladding materials with that horizontal lap siding at the second floor and the Welshire brick at the first floor. Next slide. So here you can see the isometric view outlined in blue at the left for the new proposal, and then the previous proposal outlined in orange at the right. The new two-story side and rear addition to the contributing structure has been modified based on the Commission's previous comments, and materials have also been simplified. And so we believe the Commission's previous comments have been addressed and that the design now meets guidelines 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, and 3.10. Therefore, staff is recommending approval.
Crystal, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Crystal?
Crystal, could you go back a slide or two or some? So this orange highlighted at the bottom, that is the previous
Yeah,
design.
it is. It's pretty much the same on
I
this
can't
side.
see, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not seeing any changes. Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say like the isometric that we saw then on the one we just moved from, it's kind of showing the biggest changes? Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't at the previous
Oh, okay.
meeting, so
Gotcha. It seemed that most of the commission was okay with most of that design. It seemed like it hinged mostly on this kind of front balcony area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? No? Okay, Crystal, thank you very much. Is our applicant here? Or, oh, okay, good.
But yeah, where the hell?
Where would you like them to sit?
They can,
Should have
At the-
Arcwest Architects on the line too,
Okay,
so they can lead off and I can.
Can you turn the video on for them, but you don't need to sit
Okay.
up there at the front? And you'll all have a collective attention.
and then trying to figure out which ones are.
Robin,
For this?
Yeah.
Uh, might also be a Cody. Cody.
I'm not sure whether Robin, yeah, Cody, there you go. There you go.
All right.
so they need to be seated up there.
Yes. To the front.
Thank you. Okay, and the online applicant, Taylor, they're unmuted and ready to roll?
I've given them the offer to promote. Looks like Cody jumped on. I don't think Robin did.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Okay.
Are you guys able to hear
I
me?
sent it to you.
Someone has their hand raised.
Yeah, they just popped in.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
And there's Robin. Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay, excellent.
I don't think Robin's.
Okay. Robin's not joining us?
No.
Okay, all right, then let's get going
There we go.
with the app. Okay. All right, then let's get going with the application, with the presentation. Oh, hi, Robin, there you are. So
I'm here,
before each of
sorry.
you speak. That's okay, no worries. Technology's great when it works. And
Yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
it doesn't work. Yeah, so before you speak, if you could give your name and address for our records, and then collectively, the three of you will have 10 minutes to make the presentation, and then afterwards, the commission will have a chance to ask you questions. So please begin.
Perfect. So Cody Van Hollen, 1525 Raleigh Street here in Denver.
And Robin Adams with ArcWest Architects, 1525 Raleigh Street, Suite 320, Denver, Colorado. Cody's going to be presenting for us. I'm just here to listen and guide if there are any other questions.
Great.
And Ryan Smelker, 3435 Bryant Street, Denver, we're the homeowners.
Great, thank you. All right, please begin.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll try not to sound too repetitive, but since the last review, ArcWest and homeowners have really been working on a design that meets the commissions while maintaining kind of all the elements that the homeowners still want. The siding for the house has really stayed the same, the massing stayed the same, and kind of as you guys were alluding to in the initial discussion, really all that has changed is the south side. This involves making that patio smaller so that when you see it from the street, we still get that 1-story to 2-story kind of relief, which also softens it. The railing has really been simplified and probably made a little bit more modern. And then we added also a modern shading device. Another change for the bump out is it's really been grounded more. And so before you guys were talking about a cantilever, and we really wanted to try to kind of avoid that look. And so with the simplifying of the patio, it now looks not near as cantilevered. So with that being said, then we did add modern detailings like the railing, the shading device, and then the patio doors to try to really delineate between where the addition happens versus where the existing home is, not to compete with each other. And then the other change was the simplifying of the materials with going from the lap side or going from the shiplap to the lap, and then just keeping the brick on kind of the 1-story. With these changes, we kind of hope that you guys will look favorably on this. And I believe Ryan will want to say some things kind of to iterate as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Cody.
Thank you, Cody.
Yeah, and I'll try to be quick. I'm just going to emphasize a few more points. I think we showed this last time as well, and this really hasn't changed, just to kind of give a feel for the character and what we were maybe trying to accomplish with the addition. And I'll just go quickly through the guidelines. We're roughly 2.5 feet lower than the highest point of the existing structure, and still even our new gables will be even with the existing gables as far as the ridge lines go. We tried to keep as much open space on both the side yard and the rear yard as we could, given the addition. 3.3, keeping with the historic context, has really been, I think, our primary focus throughout the design and in working with ArcWest. Adding a modern element, but keeping within the historic context. And then historic materials, I think, are being used, albeit in a little bit of a different way, but a fairly traditional way, ultimately on the new addition. 3.5, when we first purchased the home, we were drawn to its historic character as it was. So we were truly trying not to impact that streetscape, street view. And I think the addition is nearly 50 feet back from the street edge, the way it's shown on the side there. And then the simple historic materials are being used. The upper balcony, I guess just one point of clarification on let's see, where am I at here? 3.7. There are some doors on that upper balcony that maybe appear to be sliding doors, but those are actually meant to be French doors. That would be more of a traditional type swing door out onto the upper balcony. And then the addition roof is as much of a pitch as we could kind of reasonably achieve, given the bulk plate and everything else, and aligning the ridge lines. We thought that was important in terms of kind of keeping, again, with the historic context. And then we did bring this to Honey previous to the last meeting, and they were in support. Felt, again, we were contextual, felt the addition was subordinate to the existing structure. So I think that's all I wanted to add.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Robin, did you have any additional comments?
No, I think it's all been said. I mean, we worked really hard with the homeowner to arrive at a solution, that met their programmatic needs. And of course, always being sensitive to what Landmark wanted. We had to make some refinements in this next iteration, and hopefully we hit the mark.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for any of the applicants? Questions? All right, you guys did a great job answering all our questions.
Thank you.
Are there any, is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment? Do you have any hands raised?
You can raise your hand or dial *9 on your phone. There's a
I don't think it's just web audio.
It's just web, okay.
Yeah, so,
It just looks like I'm seeing the hands raised.
yep, I think you're good.
All right, staff, any other additional comments? Okay, commissioners, let's go into deliberation then. We did see this in February, and they have made some changes. How do you think it meets the guidelines?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's somewhat impressive how such a relatively small change kind of significantly impacts the feel of that. Yeah, I feel like they've really addressed the comments. To me, it feels like it meets the guidelines. I don't see anything other than the sliding door, which
Right.
yeah, addressed that were any questions for me.
Okay. All right, Larry, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we struggled the first time with sort of the more massive bump out and the heavy railing. You know, from the street view, it really is stayed fairly similar, but it's adjusted in all these ways that make it a little lighter, a little more subordinate to the historic structure. I think we're looking for that subordinate to the side yard, in spite, you know, of not being able to be kind of traditional rear addition. So I agree. I think it's a really positive change that hits on those previous concerns.
Yeah, thank you. George?
Well-adjusted plan, and I appreciate the efforts they went to compact the bump out, and the only issue being really not an issue with windows and doors. I see it fits the guidelines, and I think it'll fit their lifestyle.
Dan, did you have any thoughts? What did you share? Anybody else? All right, well, it looks like we're coming to consensus. Would anyone like to make the motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move to
Grant,
approve.
thank you.
Yes, application number 2023-COA-079 for the two-story side and rear addition at 3534 North Bryant Street. Per design guidelines 3.1 through 3.10. I think that's all of them, right? Yeah, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Grant, thank you. And George seconded it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? All right, the motion is approved.
Clarify the address and that is, it should be 3435, not 3534.
Oh, did I say
Thank you for that.
I read it across. Well, then I'll amend the motion to be 3435. Bryant Street.
Do you accept?
I do.
Okay. Do we have to vote again? Nope.
Yes.
Oh, we do, okay. All right, with the revised and corrected address. I want to make sure you're in right now.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All right, now it's approved. And best of luck with your project. All right, commissioners, we are now on to 2023-COA-083 at 2505 West 36th Avenue, in Potter Highlands, and that is Brittany's project.
So I'm going to continue to sit here. This is for a dormer addition and connected garage addition to 2505 West 36th Avenue within the Potter Highlands Historic District. You can see the lot and parcel here in this aerial image. This property recently did go through a zone lot amendment to separate the property to the north from the property in question today. So the applicant is proposing to construct a new garage addition. So the Potter Highlands Historic District was designated as a Denver landmark in 1987 and listed on the National Register of Historic Places the year prior in 1986. The National Register describes this home as an example of early 19th century wood frame vernacular architecture.
and it does have an architectural description that is referenced in your staff report. The National Register designation does indicate that it was home for Hamilton Phillips, who was a prominent builder in the Potter Highlands Historic District. So this was his personal home, but he did build other structures within the Potter Highlands Historic District. So this home is indicated in the National Register designation as significant for its architecture and association with Hamilton Phillips. So historically, this home did have two front porches, which you can see on the building footprint and the Sanborn map up into 1961. So two front porches facing on, or kind of to the side of the forward-facing gable along 36th Street. And then after 1967, which is outside of the district's period of significance, the front porch on the left was enclosed and a one-story addition was added to the home, which is the current configuration that you see today. So the proposed addition is for a new garage at the rear of the property and a small laundry room, mudroom connector addition at the rear of the property, and then two dormer additions on the west roof slope. So here you can see the proposed site plan and the placement of that new garage and connector addition. In terms of the roof demolition, demolition is limited in percentages. However, it will involve the demolition of the cross gable ridge line on the north side of the roof and reconfiguration of that ridge line for the new dormer that is proposed on the west roof slope. That is a more shed roof dormer. There is also a gable dormer proposed at the front of the property, which you can see in the proposed roof plan here. I also have the demolition plan on the screen and the existing roof line. There was this skylight added sometime, I don't know when exactly. The 1987 designation does have photographs of this property, but it doesn't clearly show when that skylight addition on the east roof slope was added. So staff do have some concerns over the dormer modification at the rear of the property because it is proposing to change the historic ridge line and structural system of this roof, which is not recommended by our design guidelines. It'll also raise the ridge line up, which is also not recommended by our design guidelines because it does change the historic massing and configuration of that proposed roof. So here is the front of the property. This is the south elevation along West 36th Avenue. This is a corner property, so the west and east elevation are very visible from the public right-of-way. Although you will not be able to see that large shed dormer in elevation from the very front of the home, as you move to the west of the sidewalk, it will become more apparent and visible. But you will see the small gable dormer that is proposed forward of the cross gable form, and that's what you're seeing here. Staff are not concerned over this proposed dormer. It does appear to meet our design guidelines in terms of dormer requirements. It is minimal in nature. It's a gable roof form matching the existing roof form and the surrounding historic context. The applicant is proposing lap siding for this dormer. We do have some concerns that it is a little too replicative of the existing siding and not differentiating that dormer enough as new construction. So I do want to note that at this time, as this is a unique wood frame structure in the district. So here is the east elevation. This is along Alcott Street. This is where the proposed garage addition is. The garage is very simple in form. It is a gable roof form with two low dormers on the north and south roof ridge. And then it has a small connector addition. That connector addition is set back significantly from the street. And there is a kind of fence railing detail proposed forward of that to close off that space so people can't gather in that space, which is you're seeing here in this elevation. Both the garage and connector addition will also be clad in that lap siding material. Again, staff do have some concerns that it may be too replicative in terms of the existing cladding material.
To accommodate this garage, an existing curb cut will be removed, but it will introduce a new curb cut onto Alcott Street. So the curb cut essentially will be moving minimally to the north for this property. There is no alley present here for this property, and it is common within the Potter Highlands Historic District to have garage doors that front onto secondary streets. So while this is not a condition that we typically encourage when there is no alley present, we have found this an appropriate solution in the past. The garage will have double hung 1/1 windows, and here you can see the carriage style door. The connector addition, although it's a bit difficult to see in this elevation, will have 2/2 windows. Staff are concerned that the 2/2 windows are too replicative to the primary structure and would recommend simplification of the window design, particularly with the replication of the lap siding material. So our guidelines do recommend that additions be differentiated in some manner. One of those ways you can do that is offset the addition, as this one is, but another way you can also do that is through material application. So we do have some concerns over the windows as well. So here is that west elevation. You can see that proposed gable roof dormer forward of the cross gable, and then that shed roof dormer behind the cross gable form. So staff are very concerned about this shed roof gable form, as it will involve raising the ridge line of that rear ridge about 2 feet, I believe. You can see that in the elevation here. So at the top of the screen is the existing elevation, and at the bottom is the proposed elevation. Additionally, you can also see that connector addition, which is at the back of the property and the garage. Currently, staff do have concerns over these proposed additions. We feel that there is a lot of additions here, and they do change the mass and form of this structure, which has been identified in the National Register as significant for its architecture and association with a prominent builder within the Potter Highlands Historic District. And also, this is a contributing structure to the Potter Highlands Historic District. So we do have some concerns that the additions are overwhelming the primary structure and are too significant of a change to the historic home. We do feel that an addition such as the garage and connector addition could be possible here. However, we would want to look at the addition scope holistically, so that therefore we are not recommending removal of particular elements of this project scope at this time. But our biggest concern really is this shed dormer that changes the historic ridge line. We do not feel that it is meeting our design guidelines for dormer additions. We feel that it does overwhelm the roof form. It is a shed roof. It's almost flat in nature, which is atypical of the surrounding historic context. It is clad in the lap siding material, and then it also has those divided light windows, which are very similar to the historic windows on the existing structure. So we do not feel that it's meeting our guidelines for dormers and is overwhelming the roof line and is damaging historic structural fabric that should remain intact. So here you can just see section details of how the ridge line will change. It's kind of best shown in the lower section here. So here you can see the original ridge line hinted to, and this is in your application materials. And then that 2 foot of additional rise that dormer will add to that rear ridge line. So because this is a corner property, that change to the ridge line is very visible from Alcott Street. So while this is a dormer that is proposed at the rear and will be mostly concealed by the existing cross gable, it does have a significant impact on public vantage points. So here is the north and south elevation of the garage. I don't have too many comments on those, other than you can see the gable or dormers that are gables that are proposed on north and south elevation. I do feel again that the garage addition works very well for this property, and potentially the connector addition. I just have concerns over the overall change to the roof line, which you can see in the upper elevation, which is the north elevation. You can see
how that ridge line will be significantly altered for this property. So here are some isometric views of that property. Again, that dormer at the rear is located in a location that we would typically recommend. However, we're just concerned over its alterations to the structural system and how subordinate it is when you look at the proposed modifications holistically. So at this time, staff are recommending denial of this project proposal as we feel that it will significantly alter the integrity of this home, which is a contributing structure to the Potter Highlands Historic District. And we would like to see the addition redesigned and revised and holistically resubmitted to the commission for review.
All right, Brittany, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Brittany? Oh, all right, great. Do we have the applicant ready to roll? Oh,
Just 1 second. I've promoted 2. They should be able to unmute, and turn their cameras on.
can the applicant hear us?
Yes, hi, we can hear you.
Great. So you'll have 10 minutes to present your application. But before you do so, please give us your name and your address for our records, and then you've got 10 minutes. Thank you.
That sounds great. My name is Jordan Murrieta. I'm at 530 25th Street, and I believe the property owners would like to speak if they were promoted to panelists as well.
I promoted 2 people. There's
Okay.
another person in here. I'll promote them too.
Anthony is with the architectural team.
Oh, got it. I'm not
Hey, this
seeing
is-
anybody else though.
This is Anthony Reese, architect with Muse here as well, just got let in.
Okay, excellent. Could you give us your, okay, so that was the homeowner.
I'm not entirely sure which one is the homeowner. I apologize.
I think Jordan talked about somebody else wants to join.
Did you say Scott?
It should be Jennifer and Skylar if they're on.
I do have a Jennifer on here. But there's another Jennifer.
Be Jennifer Gary.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
they're
see
both Jennifer
Gary
Gary.
right there, Yeah.
Yeah, you are Jennifer.
Okay, great. And we still have Jordan?
Jordan should still be on there. They didn't turn their camera on though.
Okay,
Which is-
great. All right, so for, both of you, it shows us Jennifer Gray, or Gary, if you could give us your name and your address before you begin your presentation, and then, altogether, you all have 10 minutes to make the presentation. Thank you.
Jen, I can jump in. I'm sorry, it took me a minute to figure that out. I'm Jennifer Gary. Just kidding. I'm Skylar Gary. I live at 2505 West 36th Avenue. And we're the owners of the house.
Great.
Jordan, do you introduce yourself next, or should I just roll with it and keep going?
Yeah, as Skylar said, I'm Jordan Murrieta. I'm at 530 25th Street.
Yeah, Skylar and Jennifer, if you want to speak first, that would be great.
You got it. So
Okay.
my name's Skylar. First of all, thank you guys for having me on today. And thank you for what you guys did. It's been really cool listening to this. And, a big part of why we live in the neighborhood is because of the historical nature of the structures. So thanks for keeping the character of the neighborhood intact. And we'll approach this process with the same objectives you have, hopefully. Bought the house in 2015, and I was a bachelor then, but Jen and I have gotten married since then, and we're excited to start a family soon. So we're trying to get ahead of the ball there a bit and make sure that we have enough space for baby stuff. But our objectives here are mostly practical. I think it's really important to us to keep the character of the house intact. And so we've tried to do that. And certainly if you guys have feedback for us, we'll be happy to take that into account. But like I said, love the historic nature of the house, and we'll do our best to kind of keep things in line with y'all's objectives and hopefully accomplish some practical objectives for ourselves as we try to start a family here. Jordan and Anthony, is there anything I should add into that?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. My name's Anthony Reese, a architect with Muse Architecture here at 215 South Wadsworth Boulevard, Suite 300 in Lakewood, Colorado, 80128. I want to thank everybody for their time here today and reviewing the plans. Brittany, if you could bring up the bedroom section on the screen, if you're able to flip back a couple pages to that. It's in the lower right-hand corner there. I kind of want to start with that in the section 2.28 comments about the mass and form of that, the shed dormer here in the back. You can see in that building section that that's their master bedroom right now, and you can see the existing kind of roof line and the dashed roof line. So it's a pretty tight space. There's not really a lot of headroom in there. So the intent here is to open that up and expand it so it's a more usable bedroom for the two. Structurally, we would be most likely leaving that existing ridge in place or putting a new ridge beam in that existing location to help maintain that structure. And then where we have the second kind of ridge higher up where the shed hits, we would have a secondary structural ridge up there as well. That would help preserve the structural integrity of the existing home. On that section back there. As you can see, we're kind of really opening up that bedroom to give them kind of a more usable space as their family grows there. And then Brittany, if you could bring it up to, I think the last couple of pages that have the perspective views. I'd like to talk about that for just a second. So the one on the lower right-hand corner, I think is probably the most concerning to staff, where the ridge line comes up and then hits that little shed roof in the back. And as we're kind of looking at that more, we're thinking, one way to minimize the impact would be to add an eave on that side of the wall where the existing gable is. So that way we'd be kind of reinforcing what the prior ridge line was there, and then taking the materials on that addition. And instead of being the smooth siding, they could change to something else like a shingle or something that maybe staff could help us sort out on what would distinguish this a little bit more as an addition. Kind of one interesting thing about the project is it has a number of additions to it over the years, and they're all pretty well integrated, with the exception of just all kind of being shed roof. So we were taking that approach of an integrated addition with kind of a shed roof to it. But to reiterate that, we could look at, reinforcing the existing gable by adding an eave on the side, or even stepping the addition wall in a foot or so to help create some physical relief there as well, to help minimize that structure. So I think when you're at the sidewalk level, it becomes less visible even from that view over there. And then that kind of leads into section 3.4, where we're wanting to differentiate the addition a little bit more. So as I said, we could look at different siding materials for the addition, different colors, much how the house is currently blue and the garage is that tan color. And with the windows as well, I know that's a concern. Most of the new windows are intended to be fixed or casements, and they do have divided lights, but we could take those divided lights out for sure. And then the other point was 3.5, which I addressed a little bit earlier, about the structural integrity of the existing home, and we would accomplish that during the structural design phase to make sure that things aren't being damaged there. Point 3.7 was about deepening the window recesses and shadow lines. Current code requires a 2x6 wall. We could look at framing the windows in at a 2x4 to create more of a shadow line and relief, but I'm not sure that that's really too necessary, because it is a contributing wood frame structure. So it's going to be framed traditionally with kind of a minimal recess on the windows there. And then the last one again was 3.9, kind of about the massing and scale of the addition. So again, there we could look at how we could maybe step that back, add the little eave on the end to help make that disappear into the background a little bit more. So I appreciate everybody's time and consideration here. Look forward to hearing the committee's discussion on what kind of constructive feedback we can have so we can keep this project moving ahead and get the Garys in a home that they continue to love. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Commissioners, have you any questions for the applicant? No? All right. All right, applicants, thank you. We'll move on to public comment then. Taylor, is anybody that would like to make a public comment, you can, here on Zoom, you can hit the little hand raise function. Those look like it?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All righty. Okay, so no public comments. All right, thank you very much. Staff, any reserve? No? Okay, great. All right, commissioners, then we can go into deliberation. What do you all think? Remember the guidelines as advised. George? Oh,
well,
Ann. What, Ann?
Looking at the plan and the renderings, the roof line changes did not hit me right away. I had a problem with the subordination of the garage. On a corner lot, that's gonna be tough, and the shed roof dormer up above the garage there. It just looks too big, and it looks too intrusive on the historic lines of the house. The roof line, I'll have to give some more. I'll come back to you on that.
Okay, great. Ann?
Well, I'm looking at guideline 2.28 to minimize the visual impact of skylight dormers and other alterations. And I think one of the things that's challenging about the project is that the original house is sort of an assemblage by itself. It doesn't have a strong geometry that says, you know, this is the house, this is addition. All it is a bunch of pieces put together. So that the addition of the dormer is very hard to differentiate from the original house itself, and that doesn't mean that it's not subordinate. It just changes the historic fabric. And I guess I'm struggling a little bit to know what kind of addition to that main structure would not. I mean, because I think it's not a subordination problem. It's an original material and a sort of reworking of the history of the building, that it's going to be very difficult to put anything else in that won't somehow that won't be a problem with that. The garage, I think, by the way, I think for me, the connector and the garage are not problematic, because I think they're called out exactly as the guidelines would wish you to make a separation between that. And I think that the garage seems to be nicely, I mean, I think that it is nicely subordinate and quiet and so forth. But as I said, I just don't know what you would do, because I'm going to say this nicely, sort of the higgledy-piggledy main structure that would not destroy it, not change its fabric. So I'm kind of conflicted here. Yeah.
I think that it's kind of a challenge that I've seen with frame buildings like that, because of the ability to integrate the wall material, so it looks like it's just always been that way, rather than you've got brick and you can see the changes in brick. And so I agree with what you're saying, Anne. I think there are ways, and the applicant was kind of hinting at this as far as you know, possibly moving the wall edge of the dormer. I still have a problem with the ridge line.
Yeah.
And so that's separate from what I'm saying at the moment, which is that you can still show the original roof line and have the the wall of the dormer not reach that plane. Right, and have it set back, or even keep the eaves on the outside. I don't think that's quite as ideal. But I think, frame buildings are rare and in Denver and residential neighborhoods like this. And as I said, that it is that kind of natural challenge of, it's so easy to make it look like these higgledy things have always been there with that type of building. But I do agree with staff that I think some change in the ridgeline and the, I don't want to design for them, but looking at the headspace that they're trying to achieve with the dormer, it looks like it's pretty generous. And I just wonder if there's ways to minimize that would help minimize the visual impact of the dormer, along with other things, of kind of moving it back from the side of the building, et cetera. But I think all of this is just give some ideas for rethinking it, but I do agree with the staff's assessment that at this time, it needs some further examination and changes in order to minimize what they're proposing to do to the garage. I think is appropriate size-wise, and I think it's small details that could help distinguish it further as not historic, but easily achievable. But the whole kind of picture should come back, I think. Staff suggests.
Very good, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I think what concerns me is, the combination of the ridge line, and then also the fact that, we're kind of calling it a dormer, but it seems like it's trying to like integrate itself into the overall roof line. And I think if it had a more discrete appearance of a true dormer, I think that could help quite a lot with distinguishing it from the original construction, and as that should not completely changing the structural character of that roof. And then I think, that might also bring up some questions around the gable that is closer to 36, as to whether that makes sense to be a gable dormer or like 2 shed dormers. Again, not to design things for the applicant, but in terms of an overall subordination, that extra gable does feel a little bit like on the borderline of not being quite subordinate to me personally.
And does that comments kind of address your concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's sort of interesting to me about the design is it makes the house look much more organized.
Yeah.
And I sort of understand that impulse to kind of correct the history of the house and make it look more holistic, but that is actually not what the guidelines are looking for. And so I'm somewhat sympathetic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think both Eric kind of hit on the fact that we're talking about a dormer, but this is almost more of a mini pop top or something like that.
Yeah.
You're altering. There are other things. We haven't talked about true dormer on the front street facing gable, on 36, which is more upfront, more in your face, but it works well because it's a dormer. And the guidelines. And I think to use the vernacular, it will be higgledy, right? Which is an entirely endearing term for the record. Conversation. Technical and endearing. It's unique that the cross gable has a different ridge height on either side too, which is funky. And the fact that you've got a later sort of skylight clear story addition. I mean, I think all of those things coming together create opportunities to try and blend this bedroom theme right in there in a way, and I like the applicant's idea that we shared about maybe an Eric mentioned too. So without saying everything that's already been said, I just think that stepping back and being in the dormer vein instead of the pop top vein for this feels like it would move in a direction that really would be per the guidelines and projects.
All right.
Quick question for the other commissioners. The applicant brought up the question of window setbacks. And so I was looking at the existing photos. It does look like the original windows that aren't double hung are flush with the siding. This something just for a friendly comment to them that we would be able to accept, given the circumstance that they don't have 2 inches. Yes, sir.
So we do accept matching the existing conditions, but we need to be provided clear documentation on those existing conditions. And we have it in this application, so that is something we willing to accept.
All right. I think we're kind of moving in the same direction here. But are there any other comments that you'd like for the applicant to hear that might be helpful as they take a look at this?
I think it's a nice project with a lot of good things going for it.
Yeah.
I think just like we saw a few projects previous, a couple of minor tweaks can make all the difference. So
Yeah.
in spite of our, I think, consensus and direction, just knowing that it's a really neat, unique property and the approach just getting really close. So just think.
Well, I think Brittany mentioned it in her report as well, you know, instead of detailing things they can do and not do, we just like to give them the opportunity.
Right.
And by denying this, it makes it a lot cleaner. All right, are we ready for someone to make a motion?
I can make a motion.
Ann will make the motion. Thank you, Ann.
Madam Chair, I move to deny application number 2023-COA-083 for the garage and dormer addition at 2505 West 36th Avenue, as per design guidelines 2.28, 3.4 to 3.7, 3.9, 4.18 to 4.20, character defining features for the Potter's Highland Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Ann.
I'll second.
Eric is seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Nay? Abstentions? All right, hearing none, the motion or the application is denied, but you go work with your staff. Hopefully, we've given you some ideas that will get you all in the right direction. Our next project is 2023-CUA-080, 518 17th Street in Rose Downtown, and Crystal is in charge. Hi, Crystal.
Thanks, Julie. So this is for 518 17th Street, which is also known as the Denver Club Building. The structure is a contributing structure to the downtown Denver Historic District and is located at the corner of 17th Street and Glenarm Place. On the left here, you can see photos of the existing building and the surrounding context. And on the right, I've included a street level view of the ground floor of the structure. The applicant recently began to occupy a majority of the building and would like a sign on the structure. So they are requesting one upper story wall sign on the historic structure. The Denver Club Building already has 3 signs for an existing and remaining tenant, Charles Schwab, which you can see on the right here. The third one's a little hard to see, but it's on the back left side, and then there's 2 near the corner. Next slide. So here you can see the proposed location of this new upper story wall sign at the alley brick elevation. The applicant originally proposed 2 different locations, or this location and one other location for an upper story wall sign, and staff felt that this existing proposal was the most appropriate location at this side elevation on the brick portion of the structure along the alley, since it would not damage the main facade of the historic structure. Staff is supportive of the request for this location, but does have concerns about the halo illumination of an upper story wall sign on the historic structure. Upper story wall signs are clearly addressed in the design guidelines for lower downtown, but not in the design guidelines for Denver landmark structures and districts. And in lower downtown, upper story wall signs are required to be unlit, whether they are painted or flush mounted on the structure. Additionally, this is for all upper story signs in lower downtown, whether upper story signs are located on contributing structures or non-contributing structures. The guidelines say they should be unlit. So if approved for illumination with this sign, this could set a precedent for upper story wall signs to be lit in the downtown Denver Historic District. which would differ from our design guidelines addressing these types of signs in the lower downtown. Next slide. And then here you can see the proposed wall sign details and materials, as well as the halo illumination that is proposed. So based on our existing guidelines, as well as the lower downtown design guidelines, which is probably the closest we have for this, staff is recommending approval, but with the condition that the upper story wall sign be unlit.
So, thank you. Commissioners, any questions? So,
I guess just one question. Does anyone on staff know particularly why lighting signs is an issue in lower downtown?
I believe we would like to keep the historic character. I think there are guidelines that talk about illumination potentially falling on other buildings. So it's more about keeping the historic character. Lower downtown as a district, the whole thing. The downtown Denver zone district is different in that it's individual buildings. So you may see it differently in this respect. So
Illumination is also much more strict in lower downtown, just for consideration, not just on upper story signs, but all signs in general. Push-through illumination is not encouraged in that district whatsoever.
okay, I have a question for staff. Push-through illumination?
Yeah, so typically we encourage halo illumination, which is what they're doing here. But the guidelines here do allow for push-through, which is coming through the sign face.
Oh.
That's not allowed in lower downtown at all.
yeah, they only allow backlit halo, so it's not coming out the front because we don't really encourage internally illuminated. And that's typically what you get with push through because it's acrylic and it has the light pushing through it from the front.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm getting confused because the lower downtown, but you're saying the design guidelines for Modo say halo lit is not acceptable?
It is, but not on upper story signs. Okay. So if they were at the ground level, they would allow it to be lit like this, but not at the upper top of the building.
Got it.
So many different.
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry, then so just to
That's fine.
neither the signage guidelines for the non-historic nor the historic.
They don't allow upper story signs to be lit whatsoever.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's contributing or not.
In
Lower downtown.
Yes.
Yes. They just generally, in those guidelines, do address those types of signs where our existing guidelines here don't. So.
And we will be fixing that.
Yeah.
Does downtown Denver Historic District have its own design guidelines?
No, we just use the general ones for this.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, all right, Crystal, thank you very much. Would the applicant like to tell us? Yeah. Great. So to the applicants, you should be able to unmute yourselves now, join us. And you will have collectively 10 minutes to give your presentation to the commission. And before you do so, if you could please just give your name and your address for the record, and then you can do your presentation.
I can begin. My name is Brian Dudzinski, presenting on behalf of Bison Oil and Gas. I'm a partner with Rhino Sign Works. Our address is 2065 South Osage Street, Denver, Colorado 80223.
Great, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, hi, thanks, Brian. We are Bison Oil and Gas. I'm Sarah Bullock. I'm the chief of staff, and we are taking more ownership in this building and would like to kind of elevate it without, harming the historic nature of it. And being that we are, I guess I should wait though, but being that we are not in lower downtown and more in a business district, we wanted to reach out to the commission you know, for clarity on this and kind of see where, you know, we fall in this. So I appreciate your time and hearing.
I think we need her address.
Yeah, Sarah, could you please give us your address? I got your name.
518 17th Street, Denver, Colorado.
Perfect, thank you.
02002.
Excellent, thank you very much.
So I can pick back up kind of where Sarah left off and speak towards our case here. And first, thank you for approving and understanding the nature of what this sign is. We do appreciate the allowance of this to be unilluminated, but really would like to push for the board to consider allowing the halo illumination as proposed, really due to the location of this building in downtown Denver. Considering that it is not in Lodo, it is in the financial district, it is surrounded by modern high-rise buildings, many of which do have upper story face illuminated signage, which are far more intrusive and far more illuminated, even in a lot of the views that show the surrounding buildings that are in this presentation. You can actually see several of those face illuminated signs in the surrounding buildings. So I do think allowing halo illumination in this particular case would be very appropriate to the location of this particular building. And considering that it would be a halo illuminated sign versus the face lit that all of the surrounding signs are, I still think that halo illumination with the subtle lighting effect that is allowed in historic districts, I think does still harken to the historic nature of the building. But allowing an upper story illumination on this building at 27 floors off the ground, where the neighboring building has it 50 floors off the ground, I think still it wouldn't overwhelm the historic nature of this property by any means. And just so hoping that the board can understand where this building is located in downtown on 17th and Glenarm, in the heart of the financial district. And considering that the code is really just vague for the downtown historic guidelines, don't have any code for upper story lighting. Maybe now is a chance to consider allowing halo illumination lighting for these buildings that are in locations where it wouldn't detract from the historic nature of the property.
All right. Is that your presentation?
Yeah, that's about all I got to say there. Straightforward.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Brian or for Sarah?
I just one question. It talks about 61 different mounting locations in the building. I'm just curious how, installation, can you talk us through the typical installation for the sign as proposed?
Yes, because individual halo letters by nature of how they are installed on the building, and actually that installation method would not change. The one element that would change would be the electrical penetrations through the wall for each letter, but the individual mounting locations for every letter would remain identical, were this halo lit or non-illuminated. It would be the same anchors into the masonry and screws to hold the letter onto the building for each individual letter as a standard sign installation.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioners, any other questions? All right. Was your question to the applicant?
I just wanted to recap that typically we require that they install in the mortar joint signage on brick structures.
Okay.
So if that wasn't on there, we would.
Okay. All right, applicants, I believe you're off the hook now, and nobody else has any questions for you, so thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Do we have any comments from anyone in the public? Any hands raised? Put your little hand up if you're interested. No public comment. It doesn't look like it. All right. So staff, any other redirects? Okay, terrific. All right, commissioners, let's go into deliberation. And that's the kind of thing we see every day. Any thoughts?
I think my first thought is definitely is photo. The era of the building, the construct of the district being a district of discontinuous buildings instead of continuous walks. And so my initial reaction was, that, you know, even being a kind of a secondary facade here to Evergreen International facade, two primary streets that, conceptually, I think it was my question about the mounting and Crystal's clarification was just, you know, that potential future reversibility also. I think 60 mounting points plus a low voltage penetration for each backlit element is a lot of holes in the masonry. And the spacing with, you know, typical spacing of modular brick may be a challenge, but it is kind of unprecedented, but on that level, it's appropriate, you know, downtown area.
Yeah, that was kind of my initial reaction. Erica?
Yeah, I think, I agree with everything that Graham said, and, you know, staff's concerned about setting a precedent. I don't think we're quite in that territory because we are dealing with, downtown, districts, which is, it's not a typical district in that you're not getting a, kind of holistic, ambiance, for lack of a better word, of everything kind of together. You've got very different buildings and they're all separate from each other and integrated with more contemporary buildings that, so it's just a different animal, I feel like, than Bodo Graham alluded to. So for that reason, and it is on a less prominent side of the building. I also don't take issue with it. I think that idea of putting in the mortar joints as we would normally ask for is something that I would agree with. Continuing to follow that direction, but hopefully they can find a way to make that work. But I would support the application.
Or as.
Correct.
Okay.
The application itself, not the staff.
Okay, I was just trying to understand.
Yes.
Sure. All right, anybody else?
I'm sorry.
Again?
No, I'm confused again.
Okay, it's
Supporting the application, which is also to have it.
I am.
And I would agree.
And I would agree as well.
And as far as the precedent goes as well, I mean, I'm looking at 2.10, and there's a lot of stuff in here about the nature of lighting, or halo lighting when externally focused lighting is not possible. Avoid casting light on adjacent properties or residents. I think there's a lot in that section that protects contextual situations that are different from this. So.
Thank you for calling up the guidelines.
We went to the guidelines. Good for you.
I was looking at that.
Yeah, excellent for calling that out. Yeah, thanks. Anne, did you have any further thoughts?
So thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. All right, George, did you have any thoughts?
Not particular, I don't think, I think the science is not reason to outline the face, so I supported the application as.
Okay, terrific. All right, commissioners, do I hear a motion? And we would have to divert from the suggested motion. If you want to take that condition out.
Madam Chair, I will try a motion.
Okay, Graham?
Move to approve application number 2023-COA-0000080 for the upper story wall sign at 518 17th Street per design guideline 6.3, 6.4, 6.10, 6.13, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Graham.
Second.
George has seconded that. Let's take a vote then. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, our next, and I guess for today, our last design project is 2022-COA-365 at 2105-2115 Glenarm Place in the Clements District, and Jesse is our staff person in charge. Take it away, Jesse.
All right, so this is 2105.
Your video. Thank you.
I can, and I can also move the slides now. I can see where it's allowing me to move the slides. Hooray! Only took to the last item. So this is 2105, 115 Glenarm Place. It's currently a vacant lot next to 2115 Glenarm Place, which is a contributing structure to the Clements Historic District. 2105 Glenarm Place is located on the corner of Glenarm Place and 21st Street. The applicant is requesting to construct a new multifamily residential structure on the vacant lot next to the contributing building at 2115. Lies, it took it away from me. I don't know. Oh, wait, hold on. It came back. So pictured here is the site map and photos of the building location and also surrounding buildings, just for reference. Next slide. Don't know why it keeps disappearing. The proposed new structure will be 95 feet 1 inch wide by 67 feet 10 inches deep, and will front primarily onto Glenarm Place, although it will have entrances along the numbered street as well. Next slide. The building is designed in the Italianate form and features a raised concrete foundation and a flat roof with a cornice. The applicant did not provide roofing material for the primary building and will need to do so prior to issuance of a COA. The building walls will be clad in general shale brick in the color ballpark. The building will have a simple corbelled brick cornice with pre-finished matte black metal coping. The building's windows will feature smooth finish precast concrete headers and sills, and the building will have double hung Anderson 100 series windows in the color black. The entry doors will be Therma-Tru full light fiberglass doors with transoms. The west elevation is proposed to have a service door. However, the applicant did not provide information for that proposed service door. The applicant will need to provide that information prior to issuance of the COA. The doors on the east, Glenarm and north interior lot elevations will feature a recessed cladding material, which is a Sheffield metal panel in the color ash gray, and decorative brick pilasters on either side of those openings. The entrances along the south or 21st Street side and east Glenarm Place elevations will have simple concrete landings with horizontal metal railings and metal canopies with bracing. Next slide. The garage will measure 89 feet 1 inch wide by 20 feet 4 inches in depth and will have a flat roof. The applicant did not provide the roofing material for the primary building and will need to do so prior to issuance of the COA. The building walls will be clad in general shale brick in the color ballpark. The building will have a simple corbelled brick cornice, much like the primary structure, with a pre-finished matte black metal coping. The building's windows will feature smooth finish precast concrete headers and sills, and the building will have double hung Anderson window 100 series in the color black. The garage will have 8 overhead garage doors along the alley. The applicant did not provide information on the proposed overhead garage door, and we will need that prior to issuance of a COA. The site plan did indicate that there will be service doors on the north elevation. The applicant has not provided an elevation drawing showing the north elevation for the garage and has not included information on the proposed service doors for that garage. They will need to provide this information prior to issuance of the COA. Next slide. Pictured here are the materials and finishes. The building and garage will feature 3 light fixture types. The proposed light fixtures will be simple downlight wall sconces, in addition to the materials shown here on this page. Next slide. Here are a few building section details. I just took a selection from the application packet. There are additional details in your application packet if you wish to review those. Next slide. And then here are some isometrics showing those sections and then details on the awnings. And again, additional details can be found in your application packet. Next slide. The site will feature a 6-foot-high vertical picket fence and a 5-foot-high metal, with 5-foot-high metal gates on the north and west sides of the building. Isometric drawings show a slightly lower fence on the north side of the property, forward of the facade of 2115 Glenarm Place. But the applicant did not provide information on that fencing material. They will need to provide that detail of the lower front yard fence before a COA can be issued. And staff would also like to note that the isometric drawings did show a solid fence potentially there, and we would require that that front yard fence be 50% open. And then next slide. So here are some proposed renderings. Again, you can see that lower front yard fence to the side, and it looks like it's a solid fence. Staff is recommending approval with conditions that the applicant provide specifications for the roof, doors, and front yard fence, and that the applicant provide a north elevation for the garage siding guidelines 4.6, 4.8, and 5.5.
All right, Jesse, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff? No questions. Jesse, thank you very much. All right. Do we have the applicants ready to visit with us?
There's a lot of names that are the same one. Will the applicant please raise their hand?
You okay?
It's the chair is there in wonderful condition. Really.
Oh my gosh, it's just breaking things.
All right, 2 members of the applicant team have been promoted.
Okay,
They should be able to unmute and turn their cameras on if they'd like.
all right. Applicants, apparently you should be able to unmute and turn your cameras on if you'd like. Thank you very much. Hi there.
Hi, guys.
So the two of you will have this opportunity to talk about your project. But before you do, I'd like each of you to give your name and address for our records, please. And then you're free to give your application or free to talk with it.
Sure, I'll kick it off and then I'll hand it over to that's Dorothy there. That says Abby, who's our architect to kind of go into the project detail, but I'll just give a brief background on us as the developer. So I'm Sam Edelson. My address is 1358 Gilpin Street, Denver, Colorado 80218. And I'm with GM Development, who I believe you guys have seen some of our projects before, both with the Curtis Park Club and the kind of townhomes that got developed on 25th and Arapahoe, as well as 16th and Downing, the hostel there that we landmarked, and also we're working on 1025 Broadway right now, another historic tax credit project. So that's our background. Look, we try to be thoughtful about the work that we do and reach out to the neighborhood and see what works, what would work for them in addition to what works with the landmark requirements. You know, I think we've been lucky in that we have a really supportive historic district. I actually asked a bunch of those folks to kind of join in. So that maybe is some of the names that are kind of popping up on this meeting. But we think, you know, hopefully we have a pretty nice project here that fits the neighborhood, and I'll turn it over to Dorothy to kind of go into the design.
Great. Thanks, Sam. And my name is Dorothy Ma. Address is 8905 Ridgepoint Way, Castle Pines. And I am the architect principal of Make Architecture. So if you have all that information, we can kind of get going. I think Jesse kind of covered everything, and I know this being the last one, we probably just want to do a quick summary. You know, it's an Italianate structure, 3 stories, mainly brick facade with, as she mentioned, the General Shale ballpark brick. And then we have accents of the dark bronze metal, and as well as the precast concrete sills and lintels, and also the doors and other colors that kind of match the dark bronze as accents. If you don't mind just maybe skipping to the detail page towards the end. Yeah. if you go to, yeah.
I would-
toward the- Oh,
So use your minutes wisely while I flip through.
yeah, so I think I'll just address some of the questions that Jesse brought up regarding, the items that will be required for the conditional approval. But essentially, I think some of the items she mentioned are the roof material, which in this case, both the main structure and the garage have a flat roof. So we are proposing a EPDM or TPO material for that flat roof. And then also the other item she mentioned are the service doors that are not the front doors that we have shown as the Therma-Tru front with the transom that has the glass. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So I think the service doors can just be a solid door, probably the same brand, and then just the same color in that dark bronze black that will match the accent colors as well as the other doors. And then the other item that was mentioned was the fencing. So I think the isometric just has to update to match, but we will make sure that that front gate is shown as at least 50%, and it looks to be just a metal gate, whereas the side gates are wood fencing that gate attaches to. And then that will be painted in the same dark black color that kind of is throughout. Aside from that, I think, Jesse did a good job of going through the details, so maybe I'll just turn it to you guys to see if you have any questions specifically about any of the materials or the elevations.
Okay, great, Dorothy, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? It looks like you don't have any questions, so you covered it very well. Thank you very much. Applicants, you're off the hook for at the moment, so let's see if there are any public comments. If anybody would like to make a comment.
One, two.
Okay. All right.
I'm just gonna allow them to talk.
Sure. So if you're interested in talking, you've got 2 minutes to make your case, and we've got the timer up there so you can see. We have somebody set up.
Shane.
Yep, this is Shane Seitz. I'm an owner
Name
at
and-
2148 Glenarm Place. So I'm across the street and down about 4 houses or so. I also own the properties at 450, 460, 470, 480, and 490 22nd Street. So I own 6 properties in the neighborhood adjacent to this property. I'm strongly in favor of having this property built, strongly in favor of the way that Sam's redesigned the existing structure. I personally would say you should tear that thing down. It would be better for the community, but if we want to keep it, that's fine. I think what they've done is wonderful. I think that they've been great neighbors, and I think keeping this building and rejuvenating this neighborhood further from what it is with the parking lots that we currently have would only benefit the downtown metro area and keep this historic block historic. I live in a historic house that was built in 1896 that I also recently renovated and came through historic for that process. Is that helpful? Hurtful? Hopefully it's not hurtful.
And that was just exactly what we wanted you to do. Thank you, Shane.
Well, and I would also say too, I don't know if other neighbors are on, but we as a neighborhood association, there's I think maybe 12 or 13 houses on this block. We all talk about this project. We're all excited about it happening. We're all in favor of this project. I can't think of one of the neighbors that isn't excited to see this thing get started.
Great, thanks, Shane.
Yep.
Next,
Carol.
Carol, all right. Carol, if you could give your name and address, and then you've got 2 minutes to speak.
My name is Carol Ann Tarter Peterson. I live at 2104 Glenarm Place. This is the historic designated federal, state, and local designation, the former H.H. Thomas L.C. McClure House. I've been here for 35 years. I am directly across the street from the proposed development. And I'm also a member of the board of directors of our Enterprise Hill Rhino here in Clements Historic District. Just a tiny bit of background so that you have a format for comparison here. This property was formerly owned for at least a zillion years by Stuart Jackson, who I am sure many of you are familiar with. He did nothing to preserve the property or the existing historic building, and he also refused to sell the property. He finally did sell the property to the current applicant. And as a result of that, we in the neighborhood have had meetings with the neighbors, as Shane mentioned, with Sam, the applicant, with Dorothy, the architect. We have proposed some changes from the very first design that they showed us to enable the development to better fit with this historic nature of the surrounding buildings. And
Carol,
also,
I hate to, yeah, your 2 minutes is up. Thank you very much. So to our next, please. We haven't.
No other hands raised.
No more hands raised? All right. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Staff, any other comments? No? Okay, excellent. All right. Commissioners, let us go into deliberation.
The only thing I see here is compliance with guidelines and just the absence of specifics on the materials. The specifics on windows and doors and buildings. Otherwise, from the looks of the project, seems to be something a lot better than a parking lot. So I would support it.
George, thank you. Other thoughts, Commissioner?
I think this project does a great job of fitting into the context of the district. This is actually one of my favorite little historic districts in Denver. It's like a tiny little area, but it has a lot of character to it, and I think this fits in very well. I'm glad that the historic building next door is being part of this redevelopment and given a new life. So I think that's great, and I think it meets all the design guidelines. And I would agree with the staff report of just asking for those conditions, the approval to just provide the needed details that are very minor in the grand scheme of things that can easily be addressed by staff.
All right, Erica, thank you. Any other comments? Grant?
I would like to say also that one of the issues that I had with this application the first time it came around had to do with the garages. And it's been addressed in such an appropriate fashion. And I just want to compliment the applicant for, I know it's an alley, but I really think that that elevation has been upgraded so much. And I think this project meets the guidelines and seems to also be something that the community is happy about, which I think is a very wonderful set of circumstances for a new development in a historic neighborhood. I support this and I agree with the staff comments.
Okay, excellent. All right.
I agree with the consensus.
Okay, great. All right, then do I hear a motion?
I can make the motion.
Thank you, Erica.
I move to approve application number 2022-COA-365 for the new infill building at 2105 to 2115 Glenarm Place as per design guidelines 4.6, 4.8, 5.5, character defining features for the Clements Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. one, that the applicant provides specifications for the roof, doors, and front yard fence. And two, that the applicant provide the north elevation for the side elevation. Okay, yeah, sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, Graham has seconded that motion. All righty, all in favor? Aye. And all opposed? Abstained? All right, the project is approved. Congratulations. All right. Commissioners, that brings us to the end of our design review project. Were there any business items, Brittany?
There are no business items.
There are no business items. Are there any discussion items?
I believe you wanted to discuss chair nominations, which will need to occur at our next meeting, and who would be interested in those positions amongst yourselves.
Well, thank you, Brittany. The discussion items, who would like to be the discussion item? I bet Aaron would.
Maybe someone who wasn't here.
Well, we wouldn't be nominating today.
We're not nominating today. Yeah, we're just chatting.
Everybody's gonna show up.
Well, I would like Angela to be nominated for chair.
Well, I would be very honored, and yes, I would be interested in it. If anybody.
Yes, I'd like to know, Eric, if you would be interested in being nominated to be chair pro tem. That was.
It's vice chair.
Vice chair. Vice chair.
Pro tem is like third, is that?
That's how
It's
I think I-
when
yeah,
the
well,
vice chair and vice chair. Erin asked me the same question.
Oh, so
So
we're on the same lifelines.
yes, thank you. I'm very flattered.
I can tell Ann and I've been on just as long.
Yeah. They're both trying very hard not to be nominated themselves.
Right.
I mean, unless.
Larry, you're interested in a position of power.
I defer to the chair for a longer time.
I don't think the chair can show up 5 minutes late to every meeting. I don't know if I can say that on the record, but I'll own it, for better or worse. No, I would be happy to help in the event that, you know, that has to happen. Leaders for us here. Everybody agrees.
I'll be very flattered. I would accept it. I would ask, however, that it would just be for 1 year, because, you know, Kelly was the president for like 4 years, 3 years. I don't want to do that
Is
long.
there a term that in the ordinance or is that a?
I don't believe
I
that.
think we renominate every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just that would be out there, that I would be very happy to do it. And does the renomination come at a specific point?
It's typically, I think, this time of year in spring.
In the spring? I think, from what I remember, it's in the spring,
Yeah.
because the new commissioners on
Yeah,
board.
I want to say it's normally in May, but because Kelly's term ends the end of this month and she is the chair.
I think we end March next year. March of 24, next year.
Probably.
I just, as I remember, I think
From the date
that we
of
met
all
in person.
Yes,
probably.
I think I remember starting in an early April meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Greg and I started at the same time, yeah, we've got 2 more years.
I was reappointed. My first term just ended.
Thank you.
So Eric has been reappointed, and we have filled Kelly's position as well. Yeah, they will not be joining us until we do the training, but hopefully by the April 4th meeting, we will have our commissioner.
Can you tell us anything about said person?
His name is Nick, and I do not know how to pronounce his last name.
Fair enough.
Whatsoever. It's French. Oh. He is newer to the Denver area, but he currently lives in the Country Club Historic District and is moving into the East 7th Avenue Historic District. He was nominated by AI Colorado. Jesse, Crystal, and I did interviews and met him, and we think he'll be wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you. Terrific. Yeah, what's that?
I would just like to add a comment that I really appreciate the staff, and we've passed it on to Crystal too, of taking into consideration my request for more information on the historic background of the buildings that we're looking at. I think it's been very helpful to me, so I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking that extra time, because I know you have a lot to do, so, but I appreciate it.
All right, any other business items or discussion items? Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting, and it is 2 minutes after 3 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.